Good afternoon. I am a little box just told me I'm live streaming. So good afternoon. Welcome to the Native Wellness Power Hour, week 69. And during the month of July, everybody knows that it will be a Wednesday show while everybody is outside in the beautiful sunshine, just enjoying this the summertime here in at least in the North American hemisphere. So my name is Lori NewBreast, and I'm coming to you from the Blackfeet Reservation in Montana, from my abode, which is south of the Canadian border. And I am just really pleased to be here today to share this space and this time with you. I think over the last few weeks, all our communities have been readjusting, at least in the US. We are, I think I'm ever mindful of this time we live in, that we want to commit, just like our ancestors did, to not only thinking globally, but thinking galactically. That where our consciousness was always about everything we saw, everything we heard, everything we smelled, everything we touched, how we interacted with our place, wherever that may be on the earth. And I'm just really mindful again of how really blessed we are that despite anything that has happened, there has always come a point where the teachings reemerge and people begin to say we have a choice of how we behave during this time. And, how are we going to walk forward? Even if you are still, like some days I'm still in the same communication bubble that I've been in since March 2020, just because of the nature of where I live, because I live rurally out of the town. Well, we call it a town, but some people might not even know there's a town. They just drive through. But also to really give appreciation for the things that we're able to enjoy. So one of the things I've committed to this time during the pandemic to flexibility. I am going to be flexible. And that means with the internet. Where I live, we're also impacted by many things. A lot of people come to visit our beautiful place on the earth during this time, and the communications are impacted by that. But I will blip. If I blip off again, I will come back on. Right now, I have the strongest internet available to my place on the earth. And but I was mindful today to say, I got a call out of the blue. So one of the things that today that I wanted to share with you is about really two conditions or actions, is generosity, not only as an action between two people, but also with yourself, and caring, again, not only with your community, your family, your circle of friends, your new circle of new friends that maybe you met across this medium. Maybe you have been like really a large group of the population has decided they made commitments during the time of isolation and the pandemic that they were going to do things differently. I've had several people share with me that they had a post-pandemic list. Well, I really want to be like conscious that, you know, the 3 commitments, the power hour since the beginning of the pandemic have been, you know, your positive, proactive, and productive. And if you have a post-pandemic list of positive things and proactive and productive things you wanted to do, somebody shared with me that they had completed the list of people I am going to see first. And now they're like, it's kind of like you have a great meal and you got the entree, you know, and now you get all the other parts. Or maybe, you know, for those rummagers, people that go and, right, they didn't know that they were on the cutting edge of repurposing. Like, who has an auntie, mom, or grandma who is like, you know, that's who you want to take to the secondhand store, to the vintage store, to the yard sale, because they have like this Geiger counter, how they can find things, right, deals. And so many people had those lists. I'm going to see this person. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And as you're walking in that way, even if you didn't have that list, as you're coming now into back to the social circles, the cultural circles, the ceremonial circles, you know, even if you're going to worship at Costco or one of the big box stores, I don't know, is to think about really the things that have sustained the power hour. And it's kind of like, you know, yes, you want to be positive. Yes, you want to be proactive. And you are being productive every day today when you get up and you go out into the world. Even if you are in a place where maybe the world is your backyard, or maybe some of you that are privileged to live near the coast, you know, maybe you decide to practice a random act of kindness with yourself and caring moments, and you drive yourself to the big water, or if you live in the mountains, or if you live in the desert, you know, you, wherever you live, you know, you commit to an act of being proactive and caring about yourself, but also your community. I have probably seen random, they used to call them random acts prior to the beginning of the pandemic, of kindness between people. But now I really see people going out of their way and what I would call like picking back up again those social graces. And in Indian country, there was times when people would go and stay at other natives' house before the big hotels. There was like a time before the casino buffet and the hotels. And really what that means to, what a gift to have guests in your house again. And for me, to have people stay with me again, from my, you know, my far off relatives, my friends, my cousin who, you know, drops by and fixes things. And that is really a gift where you can again share your space with people, but it might take a little preparation. So I want to talk about in terms today, or to share with you really that concept, like, how do you get to that concept of, or that practice of generosity, not with just with self, but also with others? What does that mean? And during this period, one of the younger First Nations people up in Canada shared with me today some photographs of their tobacco garden, their traditional tobacco garden. And I only know him because during the pandemic, we did Zoom, we did emails, he'd pop up in my emails, and that's what happened again today. And he was sharing with me like the heartfelt, but also like the bittersweet journey of living as an Indigenous person during this time. And as we get the news on a daily basis about the residential schools or the boarding schools, and how do we get through this now? Every generation during, since the disruption in our communities came into our cultures, has come to these moments. And it was so beautiful for me, like I could birth him. He could be my child, my adult child. And he said, this is what we're doing. The circle of people that tend to this Indigenous garden, they made a commitment to those plants, to walk with them through the changes, the extreme heat, to all the conditions that no matter what's going on, they're going to tend to these plants. And they had started to receive over the first, this last week, the first flower. And he was just like excited because we were talking about the difference between the plant that he's growing and the plant that we had talked about early, because the traditional tobacco family is huge. And so he said, our flowers are yellow. And it was just like, even though we are miles apart, we are hoping that after the border restrictions change, that somehow we will be able to share in person, like, this commitment that we've made in different parts of the globe. But that was a moment where he decided on his side of the earth and within his circles and himself, we are going to make this commitment, and we got a flower. So it's like, who doesn't love a flower? And we got to share it, because like the beauty that the natural world or the plant medicine world gives to us is like, it's unparalleled. It's just, it inspires you. And that's the commitment that humans or Indigenous people have made for those that have tobacco essentially in our culture, that we've made to that plant. That's our agreement that our ancestors made, that when we were so, in times of turmoil as human beings, that we were gifted for the animal nations. We were gifted from the plant medicines to really engage. And then, I was scrolling through this group I belong to that, it's people that are dedicated. We're not the only people, but, this is like our little cyber circle. And just to see that a young man that lives not 2 hours drive from me, or if you go the speed limit, it might be 3, but between 2 and 3 hours from me, to see that as a grown man, his Indigenous garden includes tobacco. And just to really appreciate that generosity, that on behalf, if one person is upholding the commitment that we have to the natural world, that our ancestors, the agreements they made with the natural world, and including the galaxies, the stars, then through that commitment and sharing it unintentionally. Sure, you can take pictures of me tending my garden, or, you know, randomly the flower blooms. So we want to tell our, you know, our relative Lori in the lower 48, we want to tell her that our plant has a flower. Those acts of sharing your good news, your positive wonderment, and just being fascinated to be able to see a plant, to tend to it, to smell it, to be out in the earth, that is like embracing the time we're in also. And they shared with me that that was their strategy to deal with all the stuff that is coming forward, and their recommitment to uphold these agreements and to do it in a very physical, active way with these plants. But again, we know that generosity, I mean, you know, it's an English word, but also every native knows what that is, because our communities were healthy and interdependent. We respected how many winters people had lived. We respected the new life that came into the human circle. We had plans to help guide people through their life cycle. And that's healthy interdependence. When you are thinking you care for yourself because you're gifted life, but you also are caring for other people, and you are committing to the future by, you know, kind of living the best way you know how, by the guidance of the acceptance of those relationships and agreements that our long ago ancestors made with the space we occupy in the galaxy. Because there was also, you know, teachings that were freely shared during those hard times in circles, where people gather to say, what do we do now? And in more ways than one, I have been a part of either a cyber circle or a human circle, you know, flesh to flesh kind of circle, during this most recent time when we can move about more. And people were making those good decisions, but they're talking about it and being mindful to recognize that stepping outside, if you were in a bubble or if you were apart from people, and you step, in order to go see people, you negotiate through like a village of strangers, maybe people you don't know. I have seen those stranger communities, like the instant village, you know, at the store or like at the gas station, that they form, and or on people flooding to the national park that's on our traditional land. And on the trail, you run into 25 people within 10 minutes. And where previous to the pandemic, to 2020, you may be the only person on that trail. So I feel I have to be right there in our house, they're in our land. So I will say hello, or I would say okay. I'll wait for the little notice to go off. I would say, but I say hello or hi, or, and some of them are like because it's like you have to get your social graces motor going again. And I think so that I don't know those people. I don't know their story of how they got to the same place on earth as me, but I do know that I can commit to erring on the side of kindness, of greeting people. And, you know, I also have seen in the stores, you know, like there's more families, people participated. People are bringing families now more out in public, and to see that children now, right? They went from seeing adults like this, where now you may be able to smile at a child. You may be able to smile at a stranger or to smile at somebody in your community. And I live on a part of the, I'm just gonna wait. I live up on a part of the reservation where people, when they're driving, they wave to people. So I just started waving when I'm on the highway, you know, kind of like, hi. And, but to be mindful that when we're moving about, you know, people are happy to see you. Strangers are happy to see people again. And that act of generosity is not necessarily that you give a material thing or a physical thing. It's also about your whole body. It's about your presence. It's about your eye contact. It's about your smile, you know. And so I've been really reminded of that in the last couple of weeks, because we went from not having, you know, our reservation borders closed to now people that come seasonally coming into our community, and the res has swelled. And many people were able to come home after they haven't been home since 2019 in the summer. And just to know what that is like, where they could come home for a visit and what that means. So I was thinking about today, I was also thinking that I wanted to share about, I have had moments of completion in my own wellness journey where people I knew as children, I see them carrying on the same work, or I see them going and living their dreams. And that is, for me, to be that witness to people, that's a gift. So being you, pursuing your dreams, This is what I believe about technology. It teaches you inadvertent patience and flexibility. So I always remind myself that this is a human condition, much like the border is a human condition. My vaccination card is a human condition. It's circumstances that have come into my world that I negotiate. And so on this medium, I've learned all sorts of little tricks that I unintentionally never knew I would know. And some of them have helped me with other things that I'm passionate about things and people and activities that I care about. So I'm asking from the audience or from the viewers to share in that act of patience with me. And I'm intentionally using keywords because post-pandemic, positive, proactive, productive, patience. Because caring is an act of being mindful of your overall condition, relationship to everything, and to other humans, to the creator, to the earth that we live on, to the atmosphere that we occupy. And caring is a state that it isn't constant. We always care, but it has a different variety to it. And there's a term that's come up during the pandemic is self-care has become more a part of the general population language. And self-care, come back. So self-care, it can mean, zhuzhing up, doing something, buying new clothes, putting your best physical face forward. It is that self-care too. But self-care is also spending a reflective time with yourself and maybe with others, not doing that in a physical space alone. Maybe going somewhere with a friend, a family member, or, holding hands with your family members on a hike, or if you're enjoying a meal, or, practicing where you all have the same intention to really take that pause. I'm laughing because every time I use a P word, pause, patience. So I'm kind of on a roll with the P words, but really taking those pauses and reflecting about, ask yourself, how are you doing? Check in with yourself. How are you doing? And also, really caring about the circles that you move back into, not understanding that everybody's on their own individual journey. And the patience of interacting in human circles now, people have to refill their basket with patience and pause. If somebody maybe is not so positive, but also to encourage people to state things positively or say, what do you like about right here? You know, maybe you're standing in a line. I was in a line of hungry Indians over the weekend, you know, and I was just looking around and looking and telling myself, I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful I don't have to, in my mind, I'm grateful I don't have to cook on this hot day. I'm grateful that I see that person way across the eating area, the dining area, and I'm happy they made it. And then it made not standing in that line was not in any way, it didn't draw away from my patience basket or from my commitment to, you know, really journeying forward in this time, being mindful of how I began to interact socially with people again and in those large gatherings. But also caring is, for many people, it's caring for others across all generations. We're not the first generation, or many grandparents or older relatives are raising, you know, grandchildren, because that never occurred in our thinking. And we're coming back into that time when I was much younger. I heard the like different people describe their people's vision of the future, or some people call them prophecies, another P word. But to talk about the young people and how the young people would be born old, or how they would, so people were thinking that, you know, they thought all sorts of things by hearing that. But there is a intergenerational interdependence when an old person raises a younger person. Or I've been privileged to have the same experience there's that patient in that house again. But to really interact with other people's grown adult children. And I think that their parents or their caregivers who help them arrive at this moment, that they can feel comforted by that they're walking in a good way. They're pursuing their dreams. They are thinking about the future and the way they want to live. And there's comfort in that. So sometimes the caring leads naturally to that generosity. It leads to being somebody's witness when they are living their dreams. And it doesn't stop, because sometimes when people, they travel around the hoop of life, you know, or the living generation, and maybe they've done something for 20, 30 years, and now they still have a dream and they want to do something different. It's also understanding that during this time when we're encouraged to be flexible, I just want to pause here and make a note that I always tell myself when this happens on this technology, that the creator never loses connectivity with me. Now the internet service provider may, or the technology and the Zoom dumb may do, but I know my connectivity to the creator is never interrupted. And that's my self-care, my self-comfort. So it also helps not to be frustrated or to be impatient, because everything has a flow now. And remember, Native Wellness Power Hour can also be reviewed on YouTube without these little, you could just endure through these little interruptions when I'm talking back. It's kind of like your this hour, you pop up restaurant. So, but I really, I think having been in many venues and groups and circles and circumstances where people are talking about how not only are we going to heal, but we're going to live well. And they don't necessarily mean we're all going to have, a lot of material possessions. They mean we're going to be safe. We're going to be safe. We can be as strong as we're capable of being, and we will be free. And I really am excited to see what happens. And taking time out, like if you're doing the power hour, checking in with your talking with a friend, practicing patience with the Zoom dumb. It's not like Game of Thrones. It's like the wellness, resiliency that I keep coming back in a good way. But I would just like to encourage everybody to think about, how do you care for yourself? How do you check in with yourself? And if you take that wellness kind of like teaching of let it begin with me, then when you practice engagement with another human being, it naturally comes if you share. So I want to talk about interaction. I had one of our elders that in the Blackfoot Confederacy, they've been giving with many partners. They've appeared cyberly. I just love it because I was like, oh, I haven't been able to see them, and there they are, and but really being reminded that when all our mothers were carrying us, our first part of starting to know the living generation and what we were going to transition into was hearing. And caring now is to be mindful, self-care, caring for your community, caring for others, interacting with strangers, being on a plane, being at the grocery store, being at a farmer's market, whatever, at powwow, is to pause and hear. Really hear what is going on in your environment. Because many people have dialed down during the pandemic all the outside noises. And for me, because of where I live, and in May, was in a larger urban area. And the urban res has its own sound. It has its own tempo. And that's for other places away from my home, they have a tempo of how those people negotiate those environments. And merely practicing hearing, intentional hearing, just being open, not listening, which is different, but hearing. What do you hear? Taking those pauses when I go into a new environment. And I've been reminded by many people that we often, you know, in a rural area, we don't hear those city sounds, but there is a tempo to them. And also to where I live, and I just want to share with you this my morning when I got up, and I went outside and the sun was coming up, and on the river that runs near me, there was mist coming up. And I was just enjoying that. This has been a cooler day than we've had in a while. And then I heard the blue heron announcing that the blue heron was going to get to flight. It had already done its business at the river, but then I heard its sound and how, so I heard it, and so I started scanning and looking for it, and it seemed like I looked this way, and then when my eyes came back this way, there it was in flight, because I was hoping to see where it came off the river at, but just that quickly. And so that moment really helped me start this day. Just that blue heron being itself, living its best life, living its best blue heron life on the river at dawn helped me start this day. And when I first woke up in the first hotel that I stayed in after we were able to move around and after, you know, I was vaccinated, I really had to take a moment and orientate myself and say, what do I hear? And I heard people moving in the hallway and I was like, they're already up and ready to go. That was my first thought. They're dressed and I'm still lounging there. But really, if taking pauses, practicing patience, and caring about others, and you're going into, you know, you're now widening your field of interaction, is to really take that moment to pause and hear. What do you hear? And even you could begin with yourself. What do you hear? Are you breathing regularly? Or you don't want a rhythm? Or maybe you're doing something, and if you take a moment to hear and check in with yourself, you might hear that maybe your breath is shallow. Maybe it's, you know, or maybe it's very deep. But just to check in with yourself and ask yourself, what do I hear? What do I hear? And on this medium, you can really regulate what other people hear. You know, you might hear the hum in the background, like the fan, or uncharacteristically, my dogs are sleeping because usually they make an appearance. And I know my little Chihuahua pug as well, because she's sleeping, but she's not snoring. You can't hear her snore. And that means that whatever was causing her little congestion, you know, has moved on in the environment. But caring also is to be mindful that I was reflecting during that pause that when there was a period in wellness when everybody was focused on, you know, the disruption that has come to our families through the intergenerational disruption, and the response is to get a balance back where you're not codependently, and that word has like a lot of baggage with it, but I choose to use the proactive, like opposite of that word, healthy independence. And healthy independence means that you are caring for yourself, for others in a balanced way, to the best of your ability. That's all it means. You are causing no further harm in the generations. You are not harming. You are committed to proactive, positive actions. And that's all it means. And so healthy interdependence is both kind of like the bridge between acts of generosity, but also caring. They're in the same circle. And to be interdependent, if you were during the lockdowns and the 2020 and stuff, if you were unable to call up, or go visit or go check on people because it just, it was unsafe for everybody. Once again, taking up those touchstone communications with people in your circle, that is us. That is us moving forward in a healthy way. So if those touchstone human connections, calling on somebody, checking on them, but also checking in with yourself, that is interdependence. It's healthy interdependence, where you are not left out of the equation. And many people in our communities, we all have those first responders, those people that human the food banks, the food distribution, and now so everybody's entering in a different phase now. And to really be mindful that we need each other. We need each other to not only care for ourselves, but in that caring for ourselves, we are caring for others. And I think that there is an opportunity for us here, like, in Indigenous communities. That is our way of being. That's the resiliency of a cultural way of being, is people began to just know each other again. They check on each other, they interact. Maybe you see, I just, one of the things I experienced during this heat wave is I didn't even have to think, I need a bottle of water. People were just handing out water everywhere. They're carrying cases. They had this whole group of people, the water carriers, that during our reemergence back to one of the largest social gatherings we've had since 2019 here in our territory, there was this whole group of water carriers. It didn't matter. I mean, they were all genders, all ages, from different families. They were everywhere. And I just thought, all those water carriers are like, they're kind of like what make up the big lakes, what make up our important sacred sites, our water, our lakes here in our territory. They're like all those little drops because they were going around, and during this heat dome, or these very hot days, they were just moving among the people, and they were conscious that they were carrying the water. So, I mean, it didn't matter where you were in the, watching the parade, at the Indian relay, at the powwow, in the stands, or, just moving around the camp. There were all these water carriers just moving among the people. And I just thought that was, when people asked me what it was like to go to that first large gathering, that's who I am grateful for, is those water carriers. It's like they were just like water. They had their own fluidity, and they would, pop up. They wouldn't even pop up. They were just like flowing through the people, making sure that everybody was cared for. That's an act of healthy interdependence. You don't have to be told, you just organize because you know it's necessary. And you consider everybody. And so it was just this really beautiful thing that I observed, and that now I'm reflecting on. So I just want to give you props if you're still with me through the Zoom dome dips, and it's like the duck and dive. That one dancer, they go out of sight and then they come back. But during these few minutes that we have left during the Native Wellness Power Hour, I just want to remind you can see it later on Facebook, you can see it on YouTube, and they're across all the social media platforms. But really ask yourself, what did you see in the last 2 weeks, the last month, that exhibits that healthy interdependence, where we're caring for each other? And to care for another person also means that person receives, not demands, not expects, they receive. And in that receiving, like that water that nourished and kept me hydrated, kept me well for that heat, it helped me then give my best self to that social interaction. So sometimes caring starts with that self-caring. You take care of your physical needs, so then when you show up, you are in that best way with people, and you're prepared. And so that's what I would like to ask of all of you, is what did you see in the last couple of weeks, since there's been changes in all of our communities? I mean, I was so happy to see people. I thought, oh, I'm going to spend a lot of time crying when I see them. But instead, I was just so happy. And to see some of our members that could not come home since 2019, to see them in person was just like a gift. I didn't know how much it was like the social, it was like that life-giving force vitamin that I needed. And that's the beauty of our ways, that we have those intentional coming together in social celebration and positive social interaction. And I really am mindful during this time that what I carry from those last couple of days that I've lived through, that I've walked through, is the beauty of those water carriers. And just the organization, how productive and cooperative, and everybody that came together to ensure that the community was cared for and received in a good way. And when I move among strangers at this time, I'm also mindful that they're coming out of their homes, out of their cultures. And we haven't forgotten, but we're adding on what we learned and reflected during this time. And really, we're all left with a choice that how we are going to move forward. And my wish for like the globe is that we continue to care for all, the whole globe, the whole earth, the whole communities, the natural world, because I think we were reminded of that, how connected we really are to all those families that maybe they are not Indigenous or First Nation. And this is the trickster that operates in the Zoom trickster. Sometimes when I come back on, they've muted my microphone. So I have to like be mindful. My one special Picanny vision has to look over that microphone and unmute it. But I am taking forward from during this post set season, summer season, that mindfulness of others that live far away from my people, far away from my community, far away from my family members, and that I want the same thing. I want to contribute to moving forward in a good way. And really, I just, this was on an unexpected pop-up wellness for me. But again, I just am ever so appreciative of this medium that can connect people across cultures and really all time zones. And the intention that you came here with today, to participate, to receive, to share, to think, to maybe add things in the chat. I just really want to give appreciation for that, because it takes all of us to move forward in a healthy, interdependent way. And when we are able to show our appreciation in a positive way through acts of generosity in our attitudes, maybe it's in things, you know, because Indians love to give things, giveaways, you know. If I say giveaway, everybody knows what that is, right? And they start thinking, ooh, what do I got to give back or exchange? And there's just a beautiful way of life that we've been gifted as Indigenous people on how to interact in a good way and how to be mindful of all the generations throughout the living generation, all the ages. And I'm looking forward to hearing people's stories and them sharing about what it means to come out to once again join those circles. So I wish you a day, a night, an eternity of wellness. And again, I want to give thanks to the Native Wellness for asking me to be here today, and to all of you that patiently got through the Zoom trickster. If you think about it like a trickster, you know, you can make stories about like what they're doing. And to use your creativity in a caring way for yourself, others, and your community. So thank you for joining the Native Wellness Power Hour, and have a great rest of your day. Bye for now.